I've recently rented out an apartment and I'm in the process of making it a home for myself. And I realized I'm making certain design choices and certain decisions about, my kitchen or my bedroom or my living space that my mother would have never made. That made me realize there are so many things that affect spaces, and there are so many things that affect the way we make choices about the furnishings for those spaces as well. क्या आप मेरे जैसे मिलेनियल है, आप कौन से जनरेशन को बिलोंग करते हैं, आप सिंगल है, मैरिड है, न्यूक्लियर फैमिली है, इज इट अ जॉइंट फैमिली, क्या आप एक सिंगल वर्किंग वुमन है जो घर पे खाना नहीं बनाती है at all, or you're always ordering from Zomato. There's so many things that actually affect when we are building our homes. And because the consumer needs and demands are changing, the manufacturers have had to adapt as well. So today I'm going to speak to Tarek Utturkar of Utturkar's Wood Culture. Tarek, I have a confession to make. I actually had to Google what modular furnishings even mean before I came to speak to you. The thing is that those two words together just don't make sense to me. But I realized, यार पहले के ज़माने में तो होते नहीं होंगे modular furnishings, but people were doing just fine. I guess they were doing just fine. So can you just shed light on how modular furnishings actually became a very integral part of people's lives, or just shed light on what does that even mean?
प्रथा, ऐसा है ना कि आप जो कह रहे हो ये एक्चुअली काफ़ी हद तक सच है. एंड अराउंड 25-30 years ago, probably considering my age, I should actually be talking about 30-35 years ago. उस ज़माने में फर्नीचर होता था सबके घर में, बट एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम द हाउसेज एंड द फैमिलीज, मेरी बात करता हूँ, हमारे पास एक दीवान थी और दीवान था, उसके ऊपर हम बैठते थे. शाम को एक मैट्रेस, हम लोग गादी कहते थे हम, और गादी कहते हैं हम उसको, हम बाहर निकालते थे, रोल आउट करते थे और उसके ऊपर सो जाते थे. सुबह वापस उस मैट्रेस को रोल करके अंदर रख देते थे. ये था हमारा फर्नीचर लिविंग रूम का और बेडरूम का. एक स्टील की अलमारी थी. उस स्टील की अलमारी में वी यूज्ड टू कीप आवर क्लोथ्स, बट ऑल्सो वो लॉकर होता था.
Yes. Yeah. हमारे यहाँ भी तिजोरी was within that almari itself. That's so true. Yes.
So probably the people and you as a kid would still remember such kind
I
of
have
a
visuals
situation.
of it for sure. Yes.
और बाकी था किचन. अभी हमारे घर में किचन कैसा था, और probably many other kitchens were also the same way. The kitchens were एक प्लेटफॉर्म था. उस प्लेटफॉर्म के ऊपर there was a सिगरी, 2 की सिगरी थी जनरली. गैस का सिलेंडर कहीं पे था और उसके ऊपर हम कुकिंग करते थे. प्लेटफॉर्म के नीचे बड़े बड़े डब्बे होते थे जहाँ पे हमारा आटा और घी सब रहता था. प्लेटफॉर्म के ऊपर एक स्टील का रैक होता था. उसके अंदर सारी प्लेट्स, कप्स एंड सॉसर्स जो चाय के लिए लगती है, खाने के लिए लगती है, दैट वाज द स्टैंडर्ड. और दैट मेटल रैक वाज ऑन द फ्लोर, which had all the utensils that you needed for cooking or also for storing your grains. ये था तब ज़माने का 80s तक का फर्नीचर. अभी आप सोचोगे यार ये अभी तक मॉड्यूलर नाम ही नहीं लिया मैंने.
नहीं.
तो ये हकीकत की बात है कि एट दैट टाइम देयर वाज नो इंडस्ट्री as is developed today called a modular industry. It was a furniture that was there for everybody's house, and that furniture was always a part and parcel of the house. 90s में there was an economic liberalization, उसको कहते हैं. That economic liberalization opened up the market. With that also came the consumer mind, retail formats, and with the economy opening up, there were people who then introduced machines. तो उसके साथ materials भी आना शुरू हुए. अपने फर्नीचर इंडस्ट्री में, नए नए मटेरियल्स आए, अभी वो मटेरियल कारपेंटर लेके काम नहीं कर पाता था. So people took this opportunity and installed machines which used to cut, drill and do whatever needed to work on those machines. अभी अगर आपको याद है, मुझे तो याद है, हमारे घर में फर्नीचर आप जेनजी हो गए. सो एट दैट टाइम व्हेन हमारे घर में फर्नीचर होता था या किसी के घर में फर्नीचर बनता था, कारपेंटर आते थे घर में. दैट कारपेंटर घर में बैठ के आपके यहाँ पे फर्नीचर बनाते थे. तो ऑलरेडी ऐसा इट वाज एज इफ देयर वाज टू फैमिलीज लिविंग इन वन हाउस. तो महीने महीने बैठ के वहाँ पे अपना फर्नीचर बनता था. दिस स्टार्टेड चेंजिंग इन द 90s. The economic liberalization, the software industry, which started gaining momentum, created a lot of movement in the country where the young generation started moving out for the jobs because there were a lot of jobs that were being created, and that whole industry started reviving, or rather making a face, making a change. And that same cabinet जो मे बी 1 हफ्ता या 2 हफ्ता लगता था वो कारपेंटर के हाथ से, वो अभी मशीन्स के द्वारा 10 मिनट में बनती थी. अभी ये कैबिनेट होता क्या है? कोई भी कैबिनेट आप देखो, इमेजिन करो, उसके 5 पल्ले होते हैं, 5 बोर्ड्स टू अ कैबिनेट, और दीज 5 बोर्ड्स नीड टू बी कट, ड्रिल्ड एंड जॉइंट टुगेदर. विद द machines and the new materials coming in, the hardware also started coming. There were new hardwares that were there. पहले के ज़माने में खीले थे, बस खीले लगाए, आपकी कैबिनेटरी हो गई, आपका फर्नीचर बन गया. जल्दी करने के लिए, to become faster in your production, to become better in your production, new hardwares were introduced. So the people who put up factories adapted these hardwares into this cabinet making. अगर हम एक किचन का उदाहरण ले, लेट्स टेक वन किचन फॉर एग्जांपल, एंड देयर आर 5 कैबिनेट्स इन दैट किचन. इट्स अ 1 फीट कैबिनेट, सबका हाइट 2 फीट है. 1 फीट का कैबिनेट है, एक 2 फीट का कैबिनेट है, एक 3 फीट का कैबिनेट है. अभी मुझे 5 पल्ले को जोड़ने हैं. एक को 1 फीट में बनाना है, 1 फीट बाय 2 फीट का कैबिनेट, एक को 2 फीट बाय 2 फीट का कैबिनेट, एक को 3 फीट बाय 2 फीट का कैबिनेट. लेकिन लगने वाले हमेशा 5 पल्ले ही लगेंगे उस कैबिनेट को बनाने के लिए. उसी मशीन के थ्रू हम एक एक कैबिनेट के पल्ले काट के जोड़ने में करीबन आधा घंटा से 1 घंटे में काम होता था. सो वी हैव गॉट 2 कैबिनेट्स ऑफ 1 फीट, और सॉरी 1 कैबिनेट ऑफ 1 फीट, 2 कैबिनेट्स ऑफ 2 फीट एंड 1 कैबिनेट ऑफ 3 फीट. सारा मिला के 8 फुट हो जाता है. इन तीनों कैबिनेट्स को हम मॉड्यूल्स कहते हैं. This is how we derive to the word modular.
Oh, I was wondering, you were saying all of this. I'm like, okay, where's this heading to? But oh, that's what you call modular furniture.
Yeah, so anything that is in a module, it keeps the same area, or let's say the structure, but it has different sizes and shapes.
And the same machine can do that job.
Same
so
machine.
The efficiency increased, the standardization basically bought in by the liberalization increased the efficiency as well. The thing is that I am a child of liberalization too. I was born in 92, so I'm not a Gen Z, I'm a millennial. But then, there were reminiscences of what you were saying about the way we lived. And I saw that change happening also as I grew up, because that's still in my memory. So, you were talking about 8 feet, 10 feet cabinets and everything. The thing is that I'm born and raised in Mumbai, yes. We don't have much space, as it's infamously known. And यार सबसे पहले तो हमारे यहाँ balcony होती नहीं है. अगर होती भी है तो उसको अंदर लेके जगह बड़ी बना देते हैं. Just creating more space because it does, just doesn't exist. So have you seen as the times changing that you've had to build products, or have you created products to customize to that smaller spaces?
So Pratha, you said something very important. In the houses from earlier days, I mean, we're not talking about now 10, 20, we're talking almost 60, 70, years ago, starting the 70s, let's go not too much into the past. 70s, 80s, the houses that we lived in, the homes that we lived in, had a lot of walls. So we had a lot of small rooms. With the changing times, with the 90s coming into place, and the economic liberalization, the needs of the people changed. The requirement that the homes had, they started changing with the changing lifestyle. So the homes didn't get bigger, but the walls started being removed. The walls started collapsing between the two rooms, between each room. And that gave way to a new kind of a living space. So basically, the bedroom was one area, the living and the kitchen and the dining became one room. So, yes, the feeling is that the houses became bigger. Actually, they didn't get bigger
Just
because
walls started
the
coming
walls
down.
started falling down, and the room's space definition, it started changing.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And, as of course times change, and I understand that, yes, there's some sort of standardization that happens, but the space is made by the people who occupy it, right? So, but every kind of person may have different needs. Like I said in the introduction, a person who's a single woman who doesn't cook much, maybe, or a person who's living in a joint family or a nuclear family. There's so many things that affect the way we use space. So have you also then noticed a high level of customization, that each person wants their own thing, and which is such a juxtaposition because hum standardization ki baat kar rahe the, and now maybe people have very specific needs.
Yeah. So before I come to the new question that you just put forward, I'll go back to the earlier question.
Okay.
So I told you that the rooms were starting becoming bigger, though the living space was not getting bigger. Now this modular furniture industry at that time, which was really creating new designs and new space allocations, the living room, for example, which I told you about,
Yeah.
that living dining became one place. So what started changing also there, that same cabinetry that the furniture manufacturers started making, it started getting used a new application in the living room. With the changing needs, वो बड़े बड़े कैबिनेट्स भी पहले रहते थे अपने लिविंग रूम में, that started becoming smaller, becoming neater, and televisions changed. हाँ, तो पहले पहले बड़े बड़े टेलीविजन्स रहते थे अपने पास.
हाँ, वो you needed a wall unit that was big enough to.
So तभी टेलीविजन हम टेबल पे रखते थे. LEDs आए, LCDs आए. The table went off. For that, hi-fi media units came into place. Walkman आया, Discman आया, cassette recorder चले गया.
What are those things? I don't. I'm kidding.
This nostalgic feeling होता है, I can understand. So the LEDs went onto the wall, the wall panelings were created, and that cabinetry found a new space to be entering into the homes. Now coming to the question that you put about the customization and how is modular furniture industry transitioning from that customization or to becoming module standardization, we need to talk about the homes in different categories. So we have in one point the young bachelorhood, whether it's a male or a female, single. Then we have the young couple, newly married. Then we have the family. And of course, then we talk about the generations. Yeah. So we'll categorize them into these 4 different parts. Now, each of these entities, I would call them entities because I don't want to be saying that it's only for a male or a female or for the different.
Tarek, you're woke, huh?
Times have changed.
Times have changed. And that's why manufacturers are changing too.
So,
Okay.
so when we talk about the bachelorhood, मुझे नहीं लगता उसको कोई फर्नीचर में कोई दिलचस्पी होगी. At that point of time, उसको parties and socializing or some other things are more important to him. He would be happy with a makeshift bed. He would be happy with one cupboard, probably a microwave, और उसका घर हो गया. Very
बन
simple.
गया.
So I think उनको हम बाजू में रखेंगे because they are happy with everything that they get.
A little space for alcohol, empty alcohol bottles.
Oh, yes.
Also, that's fine. It doesn't. Zameen bhi chalegi.
Correct. Then we talk about the ones who was a young couple, newlywed probably, both coming from different upbringings, coming together, probably living in a new place, in a new city, a mega city. Their needs are coming from their upbringing, of course, and their virtues of religion, caste, whatever, and from where they are coming from. Now, these newly wed couple, again, couple could be anything. Could be he, she, could be he, could be she. Let's not be
That's a
very
different
specific.
episode. Maybe not for Utturkar's wood culture, but yeah.
Correct. They are pretty tech savvy. Yeah, they're the young crowd. They have this technology at their hands. Pinterest, Facebook, and co. All have influenced them. They want to create their own specific ideas to be realized. So at the same time, they having technology at their fingertips, they are the most easily gullible segment.
Excuse me. Because there's so much exposure to information.
They
is
have a
what
lot
you're
of
saying.
information, but how to segment this information from right to wrong to need or not needed is very difficult for each one of them
That is
to,
very true.
to actually absorb.
Yeah.
So these are the persons who would be probably manipulable through the marketing companies because yes, Pinterest allows them a lot of information. So I wouldn't say that this is not important. It's very important because they get an idea and they're using technology to their hands. So their furniture would have specific needs which they are taking ideas from.
Which turns into too many needs.
Yes,
I'm
and then the
assuming.
biggest problem for them is that both of them have ideas. So it's I
That-
don't know
that's into
what
two.
ends up into their furniture or the furniture interior of their home
Do you
is a
not
big
cater
question.
to
Like,
them? We're like, "ये कुछ ज़्यादा ही है." No,
I wouldn't say they are a difficult crowd, but
Yeah.
they are having predefined notions because they are creating their homes. And the creation of home is a very important topic for every individual, especially at the start of their new life.
Yeah.
Then comes the family, the family which has done their learning curve, which has gone through all these hardships, and the children are probably out of their house. They're done with their education or getting finished with their education or going their own paths. Now, this family is probably a very interesting segment for every furniture manufacturer,
Oh, okay.
or for that matter, any business person in the interior field, because these people have a clear idea about what are their needs for their future. So they would be planning their bedroom, their living room, their bathroom, their kitchen. All these areas would have a span of more than 5 years. Because everybody who I described before is not talking about 20 years and 30 years. Yeah?
Longevity, yeah.
This is the crowd which will talk about a longer span of life. And they would be wanting to have their interiors planned accordingly. Then we talk about the generations. Now, the generation home is a concoction of different generations, of course, as the word suggests. Their technology and rituals, my from where do I come, my space, my rituals, which I have been growing up with. So their food would play a very big role in one way. Technology would also play a very big role because the young generations would love to have technology at their hands to make cooking, to make.
See that with the older generations also, though, them adapting to the technology as well, just like thinking about
Yeah.
my mom and my grandmother too.
So the kitchen of such a generation home would be really interesting because both sides would like to have
It's like a melding
everything.
of
And these are a different kind of home because probably they are also bigger because there are not a nuclear family,
Yeah.
but really a bigger family that is living together. So their needs would be completely different to the earlier three groups of
Is
homes.
this a much more difficult audience or a
So
home
each
to build?
audience has its own challenge.
Okay.
But the question is, how do you actually get to the right answer for every group of requirements?
Can completely.
Yeah.
Yes. I feel like in India, there was a time where aesthetics was given a lot of value. Like you made certain choices for things in your houses, possibly purely by the way they looked within that space. Maybe I'm very wrong when I say this, but I think after the 80s and like we spoke about liberalization and standardization coming into play, the value for aesthetics changed, right? I'm assuming people's taste changed. But then that wasn't given as much value because spaces were getting smaller. So it's like, okay, it's more about the functionality. What do I keep where? However, now I feel from my generation, starting with millennials again, because we have access to so much information, aesthetics is coming into play again. Do you think it's changed or it never went away? It's becoming important, not becoming?
Well, Pratha, I would love to say that you are right.
Yay!
Like in
Reward
every other industry, in our industry also, there are a lot of players who've started their business without acquiring prior proper education, I would say.
Okay, that's interesting.
This leads to having good suppliers and not so good suppliers.
Can you name them? Acha kaun hai bol?
So the customers, not all,
Okay.
are always in a position not to know whether they are being directed in the right direction, whether it's a he or a she, whoever, because of this big gap of the good and the not good.
Yeah.
And this is a question always whether whoever is asking for the solution or has a requirement is getting the right solution for that specific requirement.
I
No,
already
Pratha,
had
I
trust
think.
issues with this.
No, Pratha, to answer your question, I think does it make sense what I am talking to you? Let me answer this question for you.
Ask the question and answer it, okay?
I think I'm going on another tangent here.
But, okay. That's the thing, I already had trust issues with this. I mean, who should I seek for direction in the sense? Because as I'm getting already so much information from the internet from multiple sources. Who then do I end up trusting? I would imagine a person who's extremely specialized and a good manufacturer and a good supplier. But also with the changing times, right? And we were also talking about Gen Z and how there's such an integration of technology within the design. Like, let aesthetics to chhod hi de, lekin abhi to technology bhi काफी integrate हो रही है design में. And if I got 100 rupees for every time I heard the word artificial intelligence, I think I could buy the house that I'm renting right now. I'm not kidding. So AI has influenced a lot of things, especially in the design space, right? So do you think that is going to affect or has it already affected the modular furnishing business and manufacturing?
So this is, I think, आज का सबसे interesting question है.
अच्छा पिछले वाले नहीं थे
वो भी बहुत थे, but with the day in which we are sitting today, I think there will be a big shift in how every virtue of our life, which we are living in today, will change. With the Gen Alpha
Yeah.
growing up, I was yesterday at a at an event. It was in a very big, I would not say a pub, it was a big location.
Okay.
And it was about music. And I was there with a friend of mine because my nephew is in that group. It's called Untriggered.
Oh,
and they were
is that
performing there.
possible these days to be untriggered? Okay.
So I saw that with our 50 plus, we were way above the average age. So I think we disturbed the complete average age area there. But what I'm trying to tell you is that the generation there, the music, the way they go socialize, the way they live is completely different to the one that I have grown up with. So Gen Alpha, when it grows up, the needs that they're going to have, the requirements that they will face or see what is important for them will be completely different. And that makes this industry so interesting for the time to come.
Yeah, I can
To
imagine.
give you an idea, it's the applications, the appliances in the interior business. Take, for example, kitchen. They have become so important. Everything is possible. I mean, you just put in the food and then the appliance will do it. What I'm trying to say is that I think this AI thing, what you're talking about, it is such a big topic. And it's so interesting for our audience that we should have a separate episode.
I would love that. Yes. So, we usually end up talking about things from a customer's perspective. Ki customers ki kya difficulties hai? How can we solve it? Customer is king, queen, as you would want to call them. However, are there any challenges that the manufacturer faces? Or what are the considerations now the manufacturer has had to take compared to, say, before?
Prada, I'm sorry, I think this question is wrong.
Have I offended? Am I going to offend the entire industry? Will I be cancelled? Have I triggered people?
Because we always talk about the manufacturer challenges.
Do we? I mean, not in my world, just saying. In my world, my problems are the biggest.
True. But when we're talking about the industry
Yeah.
and this quick changing industry, we're talking about the challenges that a manufacturer is facing. I think we should actually be talking about the challenges the consumer is having. And I think I spoke in one of the earlier questions that you placed that there are people, there are businesses who have started without any prior or proper education in this field. Could be other fields also. So the possibilities of having the right solution is always going to be a situation where you're not so sure whether it is the right one, And I think the consumer has the big challenge today to secure and be sure about the right offerings that they are getting. So I think this is a subject which we need to also ponder on in one of your next.
Oh, we will do an episode just based on this.
I think it's important for the consumers how to select.
Consumer beware.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are the do's and don'ts to get to the right solution and offered by the right person.
Yes, and how to choose the right person.
Yeah.
How does one know whom to trust as well? So this feels like a good place to actually end this episode because the previous two questions were much more deeper than what we could cover in this one. So yes. So today we explored how the modular furnishings industry has evolved, how we could customize for smaller spaces as well, and a little bit about aesthetics. And in the next few episodes, hopefully, we'll dive much more deeper into how technology has affected the modular furnishings industry and how it will. Also, how to choose your right manufacturer, brand, and supplier. So thank you so much, Tarek, for sharing your experience with us and your insights that can only come with being in the industry for so long. And if you all found this insightful, please share it with probably somebody who's renovating their house, somebody who's creating their own space, or also somebody from the industry. Maybe they can learn something from this. So thank you, and see you all in the next episode.